Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another Wednesday, which means another episode of Let Me Learn You. Now, today I'm not in my usual spot, which is I'm usually in my office, which is located in the heart of LA. But today, taking a little bit of different tack, doing it from home in my other layer, which is known as my closet or our closet, because it's not just my closet, it's also my husband's closet as well. So happy you all are able to join me. Got so much to talk about today. And even though apparently we might be on the brink of World War III, thanks Israel, Israel and Iran, but mostly Israel. Even though we might be on the brink of World War III, today's show will be very, very sports heavy. A lot of that has to do with the fact that there's just so much happening in sports right now. But it was funny because I probably was a few seconds late because right before I started this live, it was the series finale of The Office was on. Like, I don't know about y'all, but like The Office is probably sitcom wise, comedy wise, I think it's my favorite show ever. I think so. That often gets hard because, say, for example, like I love Martin. Like Martin is definitely up there, one of my favorite shows. But you can't put Martin in The Office in the same category. Like The Office is the show in terms of the three comedies, the three sitcoms I watch the most frequently. It is The Office, Parks and Rec, and Martin, hands down. So those three shows stay in heavy rotation. So I can get sucked into an Office marathon really easily. And their series finale actually doesn't get enough credit for being like one of the best series finale that has ever been done for a situational comedy. The Office, I guess, put it like Parks and Rec. Clearly, I like mockumentaries, right? And The Office, to me, that series finale, which was, the last few shows, which were completely incredible, they do not get enough credit for how they were able to pull that off, because it's not easy to end a series. I would say more often than not, a lot of series end terribly, but they were able. I mean, I just talked about Martin. I love Martin. I mean, watch Martin every day because it's on every day. And the last couple seasons of Martin, considering how high the highs were, the lows were so bad. Like, to have a series finale where him and Tisha Campbell, Martin and Gina weren't even in the same place. Like, considering how good that Martin show was when it was really good, to end like that was completely dissatisfying. And I know I'm not the only Martin fan that feels that way. Like most people did. Like, it is, even though I still suffer through and watch it, it is painful to watch those last couple seasons. Like, that was, and that's no gripe against the actors of Martin, who are all phenomenal. Tashina Arnold and Carl Payne. I mean, they were all great actors, but they were just put in a bad situation because of all the other things that were going on behind the scene, which we kind of have a little bit more intel now. So anyway, like for me, it's The Office, Parks and Rec, Martin, and I would say, and not a distant fourth, but fourth and fifth on my I'm always watching it whenever it's on, is A Different World and probably The Cosby Show. And The Cosby Show, well, actually, I'll say A Different World. You want to talk about a show that aged really, really well? It was definitely A Different World. Anyway, as you all know, I can talk about TV all day and certainly pop culture, but I want to get right into the mix of this. So I didn't know where I wanted to start today, but because of the way a few moments ago I had to defend myself on social media, on Twitter in particular, let's start with this not Angel Reese. Oof, I almost said Angel Reese. Sorry, she ain't got nothing to do with this. Let's start with this. Caitlin Clark, Indiana Fever, Connecticut Sun, dust up. All right. And somebody, I saw you, I saw this comment here in the chat. And thank you, by the way, for joining me another week. Tim Billy for the Lake Show. Yo, I'm gonna get to that. That's gonna be number 2. We're gonna talk about the Lakers because that move, it really is significant for a lot of reasons. It's significant because of what it says about what else is happening in sports. So we definitely have to get to that. And you know what? Matter of fact, I'm going to change my mind. 77 figures, you made me change my mind. Let's start with the Lakers being up for sale, or not for sale, Lakers being sold. mind you. They got sold for 10 billion. All right. Now, if you guys have been keeping track of this sort of things, the last two NBA franchises to be sold were the Lakers today, 10 billion, to Mark Walter, who is a co-founder of Guggenheim Partners. Now, Guggenheim already owns the Dodgers. Now they got the Lakers, and now they have the Sparks, right? So Lakers got sold for 10 billion. Not in the same year, the Celtics also got sold for 6.1 billion. So we have two NBA franchises that eclipse what was the largest sale of a franchise, which was the Washington Commanders. I can't remember off the top of my head what it was sold for, but I feel like they were sold for 6, and then the Celtics were sold for like 6.2 or something like that, right? So this is why this is significant in sports. If you notice, you're seeing a lot of the traditional owners or the owners you become accustomed to, they're kind of getting out. Mark Cuban, he sold the majority of his stake in the Dallas Mavericks. He sold that to the Adelson family. And what's happening is you're losing the family ownership in some of these places. I think in the NFL, it's a lot different because the valuation for NFL teams is just completely crazy. But in the NBA, there's still an access entry point. It's not a big one, but it's a bigger one than what happens in the NFL. Because if you look at the franchises that have been sold in the NFL, it was by force. The Panthers, the Carolina Panthers, were sold by force because of some of the sordid activity their owner was engaged in. Then you had, of course, the Washington Commanders. They got sold by force because of Daniel Snyder and what he was doing. So people don't necessarily want to give up NBA or NFL, ownership. You have the Mars who still own the New York Giants. You have the Rooneys who still own the Steelers. Like it's still, you have Jerry Jones and the Jones family that still owns the Cowboy. So a lot of it is still built around family ownership. So in the NBA, that is not the case. And the reason why the family ownership dynamic is getting hard, especially if you're a team like the Lakers. The Lakers were in a very unique situation. See, the family business was the Lakers. And if you look across the other NBA owners, their franchise was truly their toy. Like Steve Ballmer is the richest NBA owner, I believe. He's worth something like 120 billion. And, Jeannie Buss and the Buss family coming into this, they're worth like a smooth 4-5 billion. 5-6 billion compared to 120 billion, that's a different scenario. And you look at the richest owners in the NBA, and we're talking about Ballmer, Dan Gilbert. These are people who don't just have 4 or 5 billion or 6 billion. These are people who got like 20 billion. Because to me, that's the kind of capital it's going to require to really be a good sports owner in one of the major sports. And so the Lakers, I know this is going to sound weird because we're talking about the Lakers, one of the benchmark franchises in the NBA. The weird part is that the Lakers, from a money standpoint, if it continued to be in the Buss family, that they were going to have to, frankly, be much more economical about their choices. And I know that sounds crazy to say because they're still family owned and the Lakers are their business. It's not like they're like the Walmart family who Walmart is their business. The sports franchise is their toy. So you can be a sports owner. To me, the only way you can be one and be one that's worth your salt is if the franchise is not your main source of income, if that's not the thing that's funneling your business. And so for the Lakers, they were in a different position where it was them. The Lakers were the Buss family business. And so even when it came to who they went after in free agency, the Lakers were actually more limited than people thought that they were. Because listen, we saw with the owners of the Golden State Warriors, for a few years, they decided luxury tax, fuck a luxury tax. That was essentially kind of their position on it. So they didn't care about that luxury tax. And that's why they were able to win 4 titles in 7-8 years, something like that. That was why. And so you got to be willing to spend it now. And franchises the ceiling for what they cost, nobody can see where that is. Like, imagine if the Dallas Cowboys got on the market tomorrow. Do you know what they would be worth? I mean, the Dallas Cowboys, if the Lakers sold for 10, what do you think the Cowboys would sell for? 15, 20? Like, easy. And so this is kind of a new era for ownership. You're going to see a lot more hedge funds jump in, and a lot more people, or owners rather, frankly, selling off little bits and pieces, because why wouldn't you? But when you don't have the family dynamic, I think it does, especially in this case, because of how passionate the Buss family was. And don't get me wrong, Jeannie Buss is still going to be in charge of the team. And it was a similar arrangement that Mark Cuban was able to work out with the Adelson family as it related to the Mavericks, where he still owns he still owns 27% of the team. But, being in charge of basketball decisions, but I don't think he's in charge of that any longer. Hence, the Luka Doncic trade went down, right? And with the Adelsons, by the way, it's the son-in-law that is in charge of that team. So now you're going to get in sports a lot more private equity, a lot more hedge funds. And when that happens, you guys already know what the number one goal is for those kind of entities, and that is to turn a profit. They don't care about the team. They don't care about necessarily winning. And not to paint with a broad brush, but I guess I am painting with a broad brush. Like, the reality is that, they're trying to flip this. They're trying to step on the package as much as they possibly can. And they don't care how that happens. So I think this is going to be a dynamic that is deeply impactful for sports fans who want their owners to care as much about putting a winning product on the floor as they do. And where we are now in sports, there's a lot of dynamics and a lot of sports owners where winning is not the priority. Turning the profit is the priority. And considering how people feel about sports teams, their allegiance to sports teams, they know that sports is, and I mean this in the kindest way, it's an addiction. Like, the NFL is a national addiction. And there's as much as y'all complain about having to pay a subscription fee to Peacock to get certain games, or having to pay one to Amazon to get certain games, you still pay it. I made this prediction a couple of years ago, and I'm going to still stick with it. We are not that far off, I don't think, from one day the Super Bowl being on pay-per-view, because they already know you guys will pay for it. Now, in terms of reach, like, I wouldn't be so, when you think about how many subscribers that Netflix they have more subscribers than people who watch the NFL or who watch the Super Bowl. Super Bowl typically draws 110 million people who watch the Super Bowl. Netflix has like twice as many subscribers. I think they have like over 300 million worldwide. It would be nothing for Netflix to say, you know what? We're going to put in an obnoxious bid to get the Super Bowl. And so all I'm saying is that, and this is not me being judgmental of sports fan. I am a sports fan, but we've already exposed our cards. With certain sports, there's no amount we won't pay to watch them. And I want you guys to put a pin in this discussion, because after I talk about this whole Caitlin Clark thing, I want to have a discussion about what LeBron said recently when it came to ring culture. And I've been really paying attention to these NHL Stanley Cup ratings and NBA Finals ratings, because it's shown a interesting sort of pattern among how we consume sports. So I'm going to get to that in a moment. But those are my thoughts on the Lakers. Is that, and look, say what you will about Jeannie Buss and the Buss family, is that, they've been one of the great families in professional sports. But I think from a financial standpoint, they kind of probably had to do this if they wanted to keep the Lakers still being the Lakers and at the level that we're used to seeing the Lakers. But in a way, it's a shame, because, you sort of want those families owning these teams that came from this kind of background, where there was a clear love and passion for basketball and for making this product one of the best in all of professional sports. So, that's sort of one thing about where we are. All right. And as always, guys, while you're here, make sure that you hit like, that you subscribe, And again, I'm here every Wednesday. Usually, sometimes there are some things where I might have to mess around and be somewhere else. So it might be at a different time, but typically it's every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. if you're here out on the West Coast. All right. Let me get to the latest chapter in the Caitlin Clark Indiana Fever. I'm not sure what to call it. Saga feels dramatic. So, the reason I won't show the play, just so you all know, or the plays, things got very testy between the Indiana Fever and the Connecticut Sun in last night's game, or yesterday's game, rather. And there were multiple technicals, multiple ejections that happened because the officials, because that's where the blame starts. The officials didn't get control of the game quick enough. All right, they didn't. And as a result, because they did not get control of the game fast enough, the game kind of got out of hand. So you guys have probably seen the play, or the plays, the multiple plays. So, JC Sheldon, who her and Caitlin Clark, they have a little bit of history. I'm not saying it's negative history, but they competed against each other. She plays for the Sun. Caitlin, obviously, with the Fever. She poked Caitlin in the eye. To me, she was going for the ball. When I watched the play in real time, or rather went back and watched the game, because I didn't see it when it was actually on. I had to go back and watch it. To me, she was going for the ball, and it was, yes, she scraped her eye, and then Caitlin, she pushed her. Then here comes Marina Mabrey and Tina Charles. A little crowd is developing. Tina Charles didn't do anything. Marina Mabrey knocked her to the ground. Caitlin Clark, that is, and that kept the fracas going, as they say. And then Sophie Cunningham, who plays for the Fever, less than a minute to go, she decided, I'm going for it all. She just basically went for a choke slam on a play, against the Sun. And so it was just like one team. And keep in mind, this is I'm glad that there seemed to be more reasonable conversation around what happened between the Fever and the Sun. I'm so glad about this. And I'm gonna tell you what else I'm glad about. And I'm gonna be 1,000% honest. I'm glad that this happened with the white girls. I'm gonna just go ahead and say it. I am so glad that the crux of all this drama, you got Sheldon, you got Sophie, you got Marina Mabrey, everybody involved in this was white. And I'm happy about it, because I couldn't take another week of another race war or another umpteen think tanks about Black women being jealous of Caitlin Clark. And I couldn't take it, y'all. I would lose my shit if that was another conversation. So thank you, Marina. Thank you, Sophie. I thank you all. JC, thank you, because y'all got involved. It was all y'all. It was all the white people. It was some good old white mess. Okay. And I'm thankful for it because of that. Because I could not take another conversation involving Black women once again being unfairly positioned as the villain in Caitlin Clark's story, which I know not to be true. But in many ways, we have to graduate from a certain level of thinking when we see women compete like this. All right. There's a lot of people still who do not understand not just the nature of this league, but maybe to some degree are uncomfortable or are just unaccustomed. I'll say that, maybe that's the word, or who are unaccustomed to seeing women compete like this. And I have often called out the hypocrisy of hearing these same basketball fans complain constantly about how the NBA is too friendly. They miss hard fouls. They miss it being physical. And when you see those elements in the WNBA, it's, oh my God, the girls are fighting. It's like, what are we doing? This is how women compete. They compete in those same ways that you often see men compete. Caitlin Clark, to me, this is a high key observation about her because she's done it since college. Caitlin be out there talking shit. She is, I mean, and I'm not mad at it. Like, I appreciate this about her. But I need you guys, and I need a lot of people who maybe commentate on this game. I need y'all to apply the same standard, use that same energy. If you are okay with Caitlin Clark being out there, being demonstrative, because one thing we forget about with the whole back and forth between her and Angel Reese is that before Angel Reese did this, Caitlin Clark always did that. And that's why I'm assuming that Angel Reese kind of threw it back in her face because she has seen her do this. And so my thing is keep that same energy. If you think it's fun and vibrant and cool when Caitlin Clark does it, don't get all in your feelings when Angel Reese does it. Or don't get all in your feelings when it's done against Caitlin Clark, period. So that's the only thing I ask for is consistency. That's it. Be consistent about who is able to do what, and don't keep changing it based off because you don't like a player or because a player looks a certain way. Because I'm old enough to remember, and I don't know if y'all remember this. So we saw with Sophie Cunningham, who does have a reputation, known for some goonery. All good. I ain't hating. That's how it works in professional basketball, as is Marita Mabry. She with all the smoke. You know, she won it, right? And that's cool. But I'm old enough to remember this. The Chicago Tribune saying that Kennedy Carter, when her and Caitlin got into it, and when she pushed Caitlin down, which was not a basketball play, and I'm not here to pretend like it wasn't, is that they called what she did assault. I mean, but I bet you they're not gonna say that about Sophie Cunningham. I bet you anything that happened in that Sun Fever game is not going to be termed as assault. So I'm just like, keep it consistent. And again, we don't need to have these think piece like conversations every time there is some level of tension with Caitlin and her opponents. She courts the smoke all the time. And what is aggravating for me is seeing how people, her own fans, want to coddle her and make her a victim all the time, because I don't think Caitlin would appreciate that. Caitlin Clark is on the court to be one of the greatest, if not the greatest, to do it. That is clearly her mission. She about ball. And so this coddling that, the league needs to protect her and they need to do, like they need to have special rules for her compared to everybody else, I think it's some bullshit, because I think it's something that she would resent, because she already understands that they're going to be more physical with her. There are two things happening at once. Caitlin Clark is trying to embarrass you as a scorer, is trying to win. She's trying to do that. And the other thing that's happening is they're trying to stop her. If you have somebody who can shoot like she does, what would the scouting report say? The scouting report would say that you have to be physical with somebody who is a shooter. That's what the scouting report would say. And in the piece in Time magazine that Caitlin Clark, when she was featured as their athlete of the year, she talked about this. She said herself that compared to how they scout her in the WNBA versus in college, how they scouted her in college and how they tried to defend her in college was a joke. She said it herself. And now she's saying, okay, you're around grown women who have been superstars in their own right, because this is the professional level now. And now it's a different game. And she's had to adjust. And I think she's adjusted quite well to this. And so I'm good with Caitlin being out there courting the smoke. Very good with it. But I just need y'all to be consistent about who gets to court the smoke and who doesn't, about who gets to show emotion and passion and who doesn't. Be consistent about it. So, to me, this is a nothing story. It is One team, they got into it, blows exchanged on both sides. We're done. It was a heated competition. And personally, and I caught some flack for saying this, is that I was glad that the Fever showed some more fight. Like the Fever, to me, one of the things I would like to see them do is just embrace being the villain. Embrace that you have the player that everybody trying to show up, or everybody, is that everybody wants to stop. That embrace being that team that nobody wants to see coming. Embrace being that team that, again, that is going to be hated by other fan bases because they have a great player. Embrace that. Use that. And that's why when they hired Stephanie White as a coach, I was like, oh, this is perfect. Given Stephanie's personality, this is perfect. Like, so there's a mentality and a switch I think they need to have. And I think they're starting to develop it. Case in point, this was Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White after this, this tension, this beef with the Connecticut Sun.
And then what did you make of Sophie Cunningham's flagrant foul on JC towards the end?
It was a flagrant foul.
Do you think it's like defending Caitlin or defending the team, or how do you view just how it all?
I view it as a flagrant foul.
I'll ask about the game too.
Yeah, well, I mean, you guys came for basketball.
Yeah,
Let's talk about basketball.
Yeah.
Come on now.
What do you think of just how you all were able to pull away in the second half, Caitlin, in particular?
We're going to the Commissioner Cup Championship.
Let's
That's
go!
pretty exciting. Y'all want to talk about that? Let's talk about that.
What do you think again in the second half?
Caitlin got a little spice to her. I'm saying, and I appreciate that spice, but part of this league is that there are people who, it's their job to stop her, and that's what they're going to do. So all this coddling about what they need to let her do, or they need to be more appreciative. That's the one I really hate, is hearing people say that, well, they need to treat her differently. Why? For what? Like, I do understand that a lot of people keep bringing up Michael Jordan and saying like, oh, well, they changed the rules for Michael Jordan. And yeah, they did. Teams are being real physical with him. But even still, teams are still trying to beat him, even when they changed the rules. Like they weren't just saying like, you know what, Mike, you're here now. Go ahead, take this championship from me. No, it has got to be some inertia that's put there. And so the more the coddling happens, the more irritating I get, because this woman does not need your coddling. She don't need y'all to be laying down your blankets and your jackets over the puddle so she can walk across it. She wants to earn hers. And so let her earn hers. And part of that process is her having to stand 10 toes down in this league. And every night she got to bring it, because people are going to definitely bring it against her. And when it gets brought against her, I don't need these long drawn out soliloquies about how Caitlin's being hurt and she's the victim. It's like, stop babying her. She don't want that. She does not want it. So stop giving it to her. All right. Since we're on the subject of basketball, very interesting comments that were made by LeBron James, who on his podcast, Mind the Game, which is with Steve Nash, he was talking about ring culture. Now, in case you don't know what ring culture is, as you all know, there is a lot of emphasis on winning rings. And, this has always been the case, that there's a certain amount of respect, I don't care what sport you're in, that champions get. And there has been a lot of conversation about how in the NBA, because everything begins and ends with who has a ring and who doesn't, that people don't appreciate greatness anymore. So I'm going to play LeBron James's comments, and then we're going to talk about this on the other side. Here he is with Steve Nash on the Mind the Game podcast.
It's funny. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why it's discussed so much in our sport and why it's the A-all, B-all of everything. You sit here and you tell me, Allen Iverson and Charles Barkley and Steve Nash, our wasn't unbelievable. Like, oh, they can't be talked about or discussed with these guys is because this guy won one ring or won two rings or one, like, it's just weird to me. It's like saying Peyton Manning can't be in the same room with Brady or Mahomes because he only has one ring. They don't never discuss that in their sport. Right. Or telling me that Dan Marino is not the greatest slinger of all time, or he can't be in the room with those guys because he didn't win a championship. they don't discuss those things. You know, I don't know. I don't know. Did Barry Bonds win a World Series? I don't think so. I don't think so. Barry Bonds never won a World Series. So. You can't sit here and.
All right, so that is LeBron talking about how people are basically too obsessed with whether or not a superstar has won a ring. So I feel the need to frame this the right way. I mean, I generally try to frame things the right way, but especially this. Okay, here's the thing. There are some people, and I put up a comment about that, and that believe that LeBron is saying this because as someone who is firmly in the GOAT conversation, there's a lot of people who believe that LeBron James is the greatest basketball player ever. And we know the number of times he's been to the finals. We also know the number of times he's lost in the finals. And his legacy to some people, not to me, because I think legacies are a little more complicated. His legacy, there are some people who feel like he could never be Michael Jordan because Michael Jordan never lost in the finals and LeBron has lost a bunch of times in the finals. For me, as somebody who is firmly in the club that Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player ever, it doesn't come down to that for me. I, like a lot of basketball fans my age, I lived through the Michael Jordan era. And I've lived through this LeBron James era. And I can tell you as players, while in a way we shouldn't compare them because LeBron, the function of his game, very different than what Michael Jordan's game was. There is nothing LeBron can do that Michael Jordan can do, that Michael Jordan didn't do. And during that time where you had so many greats who did not get rings because of Michael Jordan, when he took over a game, when he took over a moment, it was different. I promise y'all it was different. And so I'm basing the greatness off of what I saw, the results. It's a combination of factors. It's not just, oh, he has 6 rings, never lost, and you know, you don't have the same, or you lost in the finals. Like the ring argument should not be about that. So I just think that this is, you know, to some degree, I get it because LeBron is in those conversations, that this is in some ways a convenient stance for LeBron to take. All right. So I do understand that. However, the part about not being able to appreciate greatness in this era of the NBA, I actually think LeBron is right. I actually think that there's some truth to this. And the reason why I think there's some truth to it is because the way that NBA fans talk about players now, it's like either you're great and have a ring or you ain't shit. It's like no in between. There's no nuance to it. And ring culture is upsetting because it allows you, to me, to miss the greatness and appreciate players who haven't won. Let's be real. The majority of players playing in the NBA won't win a ring. So if your entire litmus test about who's great is based off who has won a ring, then you're going to miss a lot of wonderful things. Now, LeBron is wrong when he says that, does this mean Peyton Manning can't be in the room with Tom Brady? Does he not? I mean, he's old enough to have lived through that time when Brady was out there winning them rings and Peyton Manning wasn't. Like when Peyton Manning didn't win, that they haunted this man. Like Peyton Manning was considered for a huge part of his career to be inferior to Tom Brady. It kind of switched. Now y'all can correct me if I'm wrong. The way that I remember it is before Tom Brady got Randy Moss, there was this idea that while Brady might win more, Peyton Manning was a superior quarterback from a skill standpoint. Then when Brady got Randy Moss and you saw him go off for them 50 touchdowns and you realize that he really is an elite passer, then the conversation changed and Brady started to continue to win more. And we saw, especially when they went head to head, Peyton Manning going home more. And so that reframed and changed the argument a little bit. And, you know, when you're comparing greatness, you do start to nitpick because that's what you have to do. Like if there's a difference between having a conversation about whether or not somebody's great and having a conversation about whether or not somebody's the greatest. Great and greatest are not the same conversations. If we talking about the greatest, no, Peyton Manning to me is not in that discussion. Tom Brady is in that discussion. Tom Brady is the greatest NFL quarterback ever. nobody doesn't think that Peyton Manning wasn't great or isn't a Hall of Famer. And he brought up Dan Marino. Yeah, there were a lot of people based off skill set that thought that Dan Marino was the greatest quarterback. I don't know about greatest quarterback ever. Let me think about that. I don't know about greatest quarterback ever, but they definitely consider him to be one of the greats, for sure. But the reason why in football, the conversation isn't the same is because of how many things have to go right within a football season and on a football team in order for you to compete for a championship. We're talking about more positions, more, the nature of the game does not lend itself to that. We know individual players can certainly make an impact. Like we know the most important position in football is the quarterback, right? So we know if you have a great quarterback, the idea of you winning because you have that guy, your chances are greater and you're going to be held to a different expectation. But, those conversations are still there. Like he was talking about, I think at one point he mentioned Barry Bonds. And Barry Bonds, for my money, I think that's the greatest baseball player I've ever seen in my lifetime was Barry Bonds, right? But in baseball, it's different. It is different because we know that it truly is a team that it takes to win a championship. In basketball, while it does take a team, not saying that, the impact of one person on a basketball team is far more significant than it is in the other sports that he was talking about. So if you are considered to be a great or in basketball, the level of expectation for you is going to be a lot different than it is for somebody who plays football. Nobody knocks Barry for getting a ring. Hood Counselor, you're right. Because guess what? The expectation for a running back in professional football is not that. The expectations are on the quarterback. They're not on the running back. So, yeah, we can look at Barry. We can look at, Walter Payton did win a ring. We can look at a bunch of different running backs. And certainly Emmitt Smith, who won multiple rings and was a big reason the Cowboys were able to have a dynasty during that time. But people know that Barry got busy on the football field. They know that he is one of the greatest running backs, if not the greatest running back ever. But when you are playing quarterback, the expectations are different. That's why people have these conversations about whether or not Aaron Rodgers has underachieved in his career because he's only won one ring. And he hasn't been successful since he left Green Bay. That's why people have that. It's why Patrick Mahomes, they're looking at him as somebody who potentially could be the greatest quarterback ever because of the number of rings he's already won. And he's going to be in that conversation. It's why Lamar Jackson, for as great as he has been, that people are like, hey, man, when you going to win a ring? Same for Josh Allen. When is it your time? Right? So there is pressure at the leadership positions, I think, in all of sports. Connor McDavid, he's going through this right now. People wonder, when is it your time? Like, isn't it time for you to have done something? Even though in hockey, we know in hockey is a team sport. And there's so many things that have to go right for you to win a championship. But the expectation level is based off his talent and the fact that people are looking at him as like, yo, you better than Wayne Gretzky. So yes, we expect that. So LeBron may not love the expectations that are placed on him. And I admit, like, the expectations placed on him are unfair, but it's also indicative of his talent. Like, that's the reason why he has these expectations. If he were a player that were not capable in the way he's capable, people wouldn't have the expectation that he should be contending for a championship every year. They wouldn't. But I will say that in general, I do find that in the NBA, the ring, or at least among NBA fans, the ring culture conversation can get annoying. Because, as I said, the majority of players who play in this league will not win rings. They won't. It's just statistically that just won't happen. But if certain players never win a ring, that doesn't mean that they can't be considered one of the greatest to do it. I mean, Allen Iverson is. He's a perfect example. And I think it's somebody that LeBron also mentioned. Allen Iverson was a tremendous player, not just for the way he played, but at his size. He changed culture. He did a lot of things. But he didn't win a ring. I mean, hell, it's funny because when he was with the 76ers and they went into LA that year that, they gave LA their only loss in the playoffs that year. The Lakers went like 15-1 that year. Their only loss was to the 76ers in game one. People gave Allen Iverson more credit for beating the Lakers in LA in that win than they did some people who won championships. I'm not even playing. Because that's how overmatched his team was facing Kobe and Shaq and that version of the Lakers. So I don't think that takes away from Allen Iverson's, greatness at all. Much like, let's say Anthony Edwards never wins a championship. I still think Anthony Edwards is a great player. So we have to, in many ways, when we're having these NBA conversations, and I get it, some of it is influenced by the media. Media puts a lot of emphasis on rings or they didn't win. Like, I get it. I understand that. But it is still possible to have nuanced conversations in sports. And, but I do think that LeBron needed to make a little bit of a separation, because I think people are completely reasonable and okay in identifying who's great, but he's not in the who's great conversation. He's in the greatest conversation. And I don't think that even when you're in the greatest conversation, it doesn't always boil down to how many championships that you won. Serena Williams is a perfect example. Serena Williams has not won the most Grand Slams in tennis. I believe Margaret Court still has the record. I think Serena finished one shy. Serena Williams is the greatest women's tennis player ever. Ever. She didn't have to meet what was the ring standard to surpass Margaret Court. She didn't have to surpass Margaret Court to be the greatest. Now, I don't know if this is still the conversation. And granted, it gets interesting, especially when you look at the trajectory of Scottie Scheffler's career. Talking about professional golf now. For a long time, when Tiger was on his run, everybody was saying, look, that's the greatest golfer ever. And he didn't have to beat Jack Nicklaus's major tournament record to do that. Didn't have to do it. And people were like, yep, it's Tiger. Now, I think this conversation may have changed a little bit because, Tiger hasn't had a great sort of back nine in his career, to use a golf term. And then you look at Scottie Scheffler and all the things that he's doing. And, I don't know if people still feel the same way, but he definitely didn't have to meet the same standards of Jack Nicklaus and other great golfers in order to be considered the greatest. I should probably pop up that comment again, because that's interesting. All right, this is from NK, who says, we have to get shock jock and awful analysts like Stephen A. to skip out of the way. Debate culture has ruined how the NBA is discussed. Now, I won't, I don't want to get personal and attach it to them in particular, but I will say that in general, how sports is talked about on television has had a great influence to how the public talks about it as well. I do think that there used to be more nuance in sports, but I think because we're in a time where to gain traction and to cut through and to gain audience attention, that the hotter the take, the better. And that has influenced how among fans people talk about it. Just in casual conversations that I have with people about sports, and we're talking about greatness, we be talking about a great player, they'd be like, they ain't shit because they ain't win. It's like, well, they were one of the best at their position. I mean, Karl Malone is a terrible person and a shitty human being, but he is one of the greatest power forwards ever, and so we have to learn how to navigate those discussions, which brings me to something else I sort of want to pivot to. So one thing that I noticed was, I'm sure you all have noticed this, is that the NBA and NHL ratings, they both have been down. Now, I think it's a little bit different when you're having a discussion about the NHL, because I think the NHL has always been kind of a bit of a niche sport. That doesn't mean it hasn't been popular. And, I don't want NHL fans to come after me and say, like, you don't understand. I've actually covered a Stanley Cup or two. And which was so funny because I see Paul Maurice, he's with the Florida Panthers, who just won a back-to-back Stanley Cups. And I covered Paul Maurice when he was the when he was the coach of the Carolina Hurricanes. It was the Hurricanes and the Detroit Red Wings. That was the Stanley Cup I had to cover. But at any rate, the ratings for the Stanley Cup haven't been great. I think part of that has to do with the fact that it's on TNT. So that's a non-traditional place for that to be. So there probably was a bit of an awareness issue. Then you have an access issue. So that probably led to the ratings being down in the United States. As you might imagine, in Edmonton, in Canada, NHL finals or Stanley Cup ratings was popping, right? Then you get to the NBA. And the NBA, their finals ratings are also down. So I'm looking at it as two small market teams. You got Indiana, you got Oklahoma City. And one thing that I have wondered, especially seeing this conversation that developed around the NBA finals, people, and y'all tell me in the chat, people were so upset that the finals decal wasn't on the court. And I think it got superimposed like by some graphics. And there was this whole movement of people who were upset that they didn't feel like the finals felt like the finals. And I have to be honest, I was a little thrown off by that conversation, mostly because I'm not that kind of sports viewer. Like the pageantry doesn't matter to me. Like I know it's the finals because it's June and there's two teams left. Like I don't need somebody being like, it's the finals. It's like, we know it's the finals, right? I've been watching the finals since I was a kid. So I don't need all the pomp and the circumstance, but that's just me. And from what I gathered from a lot of sports fans who were given constant feedback is that they felt like the NBA did not do a good job of making the finals seem like a big deal. So I want to ask y'all in the chat, like, is that true? Did you really think that the finals didn't feel like the finals? Did they not feel like the finals just because you had Indiana and Oklahoma City in it? And maybe you didn't have the household name megastars that you've been accustomed to? No, there was no LeBron. No, there was no Steph. Certain needle movers. Like I love SGA. I love Hallie. These are good players. You know, these are two very complete teams. So I don't sometimes understand when sports fans want to talk out of both sides of their neck, right? So on one hand, NBA fans are quick to tell you that they feel like the NBA is in the bag for the big market teams. LA, Boston, like big market teams, they ruined everything. I just want to see them and the Knicks all in the finals. Blah, 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 blah. And then when you get two teams, which frankly should give a lot of franchises hope, like this could be us. Then you complain about that too, because you're like, well, I'm not interested in that. Well, which one is it? Which one is it? Do you want the big market teams or do you want the small market teams? Like, I'm failing to understand what the issue is. So to me, it's just, it gets back to a broader conversation about how we consume sports now. And I do think because we are in an attention economy in this country in general, not related to sports, that I think a lot of it is just that we are so used to people fighting for our attention that what should just be, we should be happy with just really good games. It doesn't feel like enough because we're used to that competition for our attention. So it doesn't feel like enough to us. Like what? I used to make this joke, though it wasn't partly a joke. I mean, it was one of those jokes that was rooted in a little bit of truth. How many of y'all have seen Beyonce perform? All right. Don't know how many, but I'm sure there's some people who have. I've seen Beyonce perform now, I think 4 times. And I used to joke that Beyonce ruins the concert experience for everybody. Once you see Beyonce, it's like you can't see anybody else. And that is because every Beyonce concert, she does something where you're just like, human beings aren't really designed to do that, but you did that. Human beings shouldn't be doing that. Like, how did you do that? I saw her at, I don't know if it's still called this, but at Baltimore's at MCI Stadium when she first started doing stadiums. And she walked on water. She literally walked on water. So she always does something that is unique or different. And she's able to just showcase her talent. I mean, between the singing and the dancing, it's like everything is high level. The costumes, it's a constant for your eyeballs. It is constant energy. It is constant visual stimulation. So when you go from that, and then you go see Drake, I'm not picking on Drake, but I guess I'm by proxy picking on Drake. You go from that to seeing Drake, who just out there, one man with a mic, or any rapper, him and his mic. You like, what? I'm bored, because we're used to this constant stimulation. So I feel like sports fans are almost going to the same place, where if they don't aren't visually stimulated, if there isn't always a fight for their attention for this thing that they are watching, then it starts to feel routine and boring. And I don't know if a league can fix that. I don't know if a decal on the court can fix that. Like, you want pop and you want circumstance and you want pageantry, and it's just, why not just the games? Are the games just not good enough? Because I think this series has been really compelling. You know, does it compare to 4 straight years of Cavs and Golden State? Well, maybe not. No. But I think it's been a damn good series. And so sometimes I think sports fans, they get into this thing where they just don't know what they want. And everything is framed in what appeals to the casual fan. And I'm not so sure if that's a great comparison or a great barometer to always hold it to. Like, if your barometer of success is always who are the fans that are, or the people that are least interested in the sport that we can attract, like, I don't know if you're going to ever win that argument. Like, unless you are planning on showing Taylor Swift 35 times during the NBA Finals, I don't know that you're ever meant to win that. So I think it's okay to be happy with just the games. I'm excited about the finals. I'm watching every one of the games. I mean, I watched a lot of the NBA playoffs. The NBA playoffs have been spectacular. And I feel like if you're missing that, then you're kind of missing the point. All right. So rounding up on sort of the last few minutes of the show. So it is time for a little 5 things you need to learn. Now, as you see, the title of the show is called Let Me Learn You. And the reason why is like, I learn from you, you learn from me, learn from the experts that I have on here. I know I haven't had any experts on here the last couple of weeks, but trust me, I'm going to get to some experts. So one of the things that I want to leave you with, of the 5 things that you need to learn, is there's been this conversation, especially this week, about the shade room. And this conversation came from the fact that the shade room posted on their page, happy birthday to Donald Trump. Now, last week, there was a whole military parade that was coinciding, or this past weekend, that was coinciding with it being the president's birthday. And this parade cost millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. I think it cost about $90 million for a military parade that, you know, if we're supposed to be in the mode of efficiency, this seems like a big waste of time. And so the Shade Room, they wound up taking the post down. They posted a happy birthday to Donald Trump. The Shade Room is Black owned. It's a Nigerian woman whose name is escaping me now, who owns the Shade Room. And people took off on the Shade Room after that. And my biggest issue with the Shade Room has been their constant funnel, them being a constant source of misinformation. Now, here's the problem: is the Shade Room has about 30 million people that I think they have 30 million Instagram subscribers. Let me make sure that that's right. Let me look it up on my phone real quick. Y'all bear with me to make sure that I'm giving you accurate information, because unlike the Shade Room, that actually matters to me. And they have a lot of influence. Yes, I was right. So on Instagram, the Shade Room has 29.3 million followers. The thing about the Shade Room, and I read this elsewhere in another story, is that the Shade Room for 18 to 25-year-olds, Black folks, is their number one source of information. Now, as a journalist that maybe want to pirouette off a building, that being said, It's also why you've seen certain politicians that have done interviews and certain celebrities that have done interviews with the Shade Room, is because they're aware of the reach of the audience. And so if you're a politician and you do an interview on the Shade Room, really what you're trying to do is reach an audience that needs to be reached. The disappointing part about the Shade Room is that they have this reach and they have this platform, and it's a Black-owned platform, and it is hard to build any Black-owned platform. Trust me, I know, I'm living this right now, is that you have this responsibility. I believe you have this responsibility to inform your viewers, listeners, watchers with accurate information. And the Shade Room doesn't do that a lot of times. Sometimes you see stories on there and it sounds like it's a right-wing talking point machine. Like, what are you guys doing? Are you vetting this information? Do you care that you're misinforming the public? And so the Shade Room is not your friend. I'm not telling y'all to boycott it. I'm just saying they're not your friend. And if that's your source of information, I'm going to need you to get some new sources. And when it comes to information in general, like as a public, we need to take more responsibility for that. I say this all the time, especially when it comes to voting, is that you want people to knock on your door and tell you all the information you need to know. And that's not how this works. As a civilian, as somebody who pays taxes, it's up to you to get the information. It is not up to somebody to come in there and make you get the information. It is up to you as a citizen. Your responsibility and job is to research and get the information and understand the issues. And so the Shade Room should not be your number one source for news. There's a variety of different news sources you can use. I strongly believe in independent journalism. There's a lot of independent news, a lot of independent news organizations that are out there that are frankly phenomenal. The Mississippi Free Press. One of my favorites lately that I've discovered is the Prison Journalism Project. This is an independent media outlet made up of those who are incarcerated, and they write fantastic stories about some of the things happening inside of various prisons across the country. It's fantastic. It's great. So anyway, the Shade Room is not your friend. And I hope you all learn that. Don't know if you saw this story, but Trump is coming out with his own mobile phone, which, when you think about stories like this, you think this is the president of the United States who has now turned into Boost Mobile. The phones, by the way, will be made in China, which I find to be actually the punchline. So I'm like, made in China, huh? And all I could think about when I saw that Trump Mobile was the rush card. Y'all remember the rush card? It's like, why do we have the president constantly hawking things, from the shoes to this to that? I mean, I know why, because he's grifted. I mean, he's pulling off literally one of the greatest eras of political corruption you've ever seen. I truly expect one night I'm going to turn to BET, because y'all know BET late at night. They still, they run the infomercial commercials. This man going to be selling Trump holy water. Y'all know it's coming, because his followers, the one thing about a Trump follower, they all in. They buying the Bibles, the T-shirts, the flags, everything. So if I saw how they were, the fact that they went out and bought them lame ass shoes, listen, next week I'll be like, y'all want the Trump Twinkies? Y'all want the Trump snack pack? What y'all want? I'm just like, what? This feels beneath the presidency isn't even the right word for it. I mean, it's like in the bowels of hell beneath the presidency. The president should not be out here hawking phones. I know Hunter Biden is somewhere like, help me understand how I was accused of using my father's influence to cut business deals, but Don and Eric Trump out here hawking phones. Riddle me this. Okay? Riddle me this. Trump done hawk steaks. What they always tell you in business, you should stick to the shit that you know, right? What does this man know about mobile phones? I need somebody to get a phone and report back, because I light my hand on fire before I got one. And it's like Trump is starting to feel like the dude You know, I mean, well, in LA, I'll use an LA example. So when you go to the post office in LA, like a lot of offices, there's a dude out there who's selling everything from fans to purses to t-shirts, phones, chargers. He's selling it all. And it feels like Trump is the dude outside the LA post office hawking about 22 different items. Pourquoi? Why? It's just why. It's just, you got to find a levity in the situation that we're in. So sometimes, and this is always hard for me, when somebody who is truly terrible does something and they make a great point. It is just, it can be disconcerting. Tucker Carlson did something I didn't think he was capable of. He actually practiced good journalism. And my mouth is struggling to give him a compliment because I think he's a despicable person. But he fracked Senator Ted Cruz extra crispy.
How many people live in Iran, by the way?
I don't know the population.
At all?
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people live in Iran?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah,
How could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's,
because,
it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant?
Because if you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about
Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay, this is cute.
It's not even... You don't know anything about Iran. So
okay,
actually,
I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who
don't know anything about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump. You're the
I'm
one
not saying that.
who can't figure out if it was a good idea to kill General Soleimani, and you said it was bad.
You don't believe they're trying to murder Trump.
Yes, I do.
Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really believe that...
We're carrying out military strikes today.
You said Israel was.
Right, with our help. I said we. Israel is leading them, but we're supporting them.
Well, you're breaking news here because the U.S. government last night denied, the National Security Council spokesman Alex Pfeiffer denied on behalf of Trump that we were acting on Israel's behalf in any offensive capacity.
No, we're not bombing them. Israel's bombing them.
You just said we were.
We are supporting
this is
Israel.
High stakes. You're a senator. If you're saying the United States government is at war with Iran right now, people are listening.
Okay.
He fried that man extra crispy, just sizzled him. And I was like, oh my God, what bizarre world is this where I now have to pay Tucker Carlson a compliment? But here's the thing. Tucker wasn't done.
Growing up in Sunday school, I was taught from the Bible, those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed. And from my perspective, I want to be on the blessing side of things.
Of those who bless the government of Israel?
Those who bless Israel is what it says. It doesn't say the government of, it says the nation of Israel. So that's in the Bible. As a Christian, I believe that.
Where is that?
I can find it to you. I don't have the scripture off the tip of my... You pull out the phone and use the Google.
It's in Genesis. But so you're quoting a Bible phrase. You don't have context for it and you don't know where in the Bible it is, but that's like your theology? I'm confused. What does that even mean?
Tucker.
I'm a Christian. I want to know what you're talking about.
Okay. Where does my support for Israel come from? Number one, because biblically we're commanded to support Israel. But number two.
Well, hold on.
No,
hold on. You're a senator and now you're throwing out theology and I am a Christian and I am allowed to weigh in on this. We are commanded as Christians to support the government of Israel?
We are commanded to support Israel. And what
does that mean, Israel?
We're told those who bless Israel will be blessed.
But hold on, define Israel. This is important. Are you kidding? This is a majority Christian country.
Define Israel? Do you not know what Israel is? That would be the country you've asked like 49 questions about.
So that's what Genesis, that's what God is talking about.
The nation of Israel, yes.
So is that the current borders, the current leadership? He's talking about the political entity called Israel?
He's talking about the nation of Israel. Yeah, nations exist, and he's discussing a nation. A nation was the people of Israel.
Is the nation
They're the descendants
God's
of Abraham.
referring to in Genesis, is that the same as the country run by Benjamin Netanyahu right now?
Yes.
It is. Okay.
And by the way, it's not run by Benjamin Netanyahu as a dictator. It's a democratic country that elected.
But he's the prime minister.
Right.
What?
But just like America is the country run by Donald Trump. No, actually, the American people elected Donald Trump. The same principle
This is
there.
silly. I'm talking about the political entity of modern Israel.
Yes, and that is
You believe
Israel.
that's what God was talking about in
Yes.
Genesis.
I do, but
That country's existed since when?
for thousands of years. Now, there was a time when it didn't exist, and then it was recreated just over 70 years ago.
I'm saying, I think most people understand that line in Genesis to refer to the Jewish people, God's chosen people.
That's not what it says.
Okay, Israel, but you don't even know where in the Bible it is.
Imagine getting biblically checked by Tucker Carlson. I mean, what? What world do we live in where we got Tucker Carlson out here Bible checking people? But in a way, what's sad about this is that, one, this is something all the mainstream media should be doing. Two, is that Tucker Carlson for so long, like a lot of Fox anchors do, they are running, and this is why it's hard. This is what's hard for me to respect as somebody who got into journalism because I really believed in truth, accuracy, and telling people stories. I really believe this. And when I see some of my colleagues out there performing an obvious grift, it's upsetting to me. And by grift, I mean, these are people who will be, you see all that on camera, right? And then when you go off camera and when the spotlight is on, it's different. Let me tell you an experience that was very eye-opening to me about Fox News. When President Obama was in office, I got the opportunity to go to the White House twice. And both times that I went, they have a receiving line where the president, Michelle Obama, they are, you can take pictures with them or whatever. Obama, being the person that he was, he invited a lot, pretty much all of the Fox News personalities were there. Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Juan Williams, they all there. They all in line to get their picture with President Obama. Y'all saw how they talked about this man on air. They talked about him that, like, if he had cured cancer, they would have rather died from cancer than Obama cure it. That's how they talked about him for years, for 8 years. And yet, when the camera's not on and when they're not in front of their viewers, they trying to get pictures with Obama. And that's when I was like, oh, I see the grift. Oh, I see what it is. It's like, oh, so in public, to your fans and to your viewership, you fronting like you hate this man, but behind closed doors, y'all in the pictures like all up in the video. Very eye-opening. I don't do that. I can only be one way. I can only be me. And in doing television, especially more political television, is definitely people that I have been at these debate tables with, that you see them on air, they one way. They sounded crazy. They talking to people crazy. Soon as they get off air, hey, you want to go? Want to go grab a drink, or let's all hang out. Fuck no. What? I just heard you run down 5 great Nazi talking points. I don't want to eat with you because that's how I get down. Like, I'm not one way on camera and one way off camera. I'm the same person, and a lot of people in our business are not that way. They are different people. They're performing. Like, to them, this is just a game. I'm like, no, I'm talking about real shit that matters. People's lives, people being impacted by things. And it just really disgusts me when I find that out. And so when I see this from Tucker Carlson, it's disappointing because he could have been this kind of journalist all along, but he chose to check. And listen, there are days I wake up and I say, woo, why didn't God bless me with much less dignity and respect for myself? If I just had a little less dignity, people, I would be so rich right now. But unfortunately, I have some dignity. I have some respect. I'm not perfect at it, but the journalism I do matters to me. And because it does matter to me, I can't play these games like that. And so when I see Tucker Carlson doing that, it's just disappointing. And it's more disappointing that it took him to do it. And there's people in mainstream media who could have been doing this. It's people in mainstream media who definitely do. You know, my girl Joanne Reed, and watch her show, by the way. She has an amazing show on YouTube, so you guys should check it out. Rachel Maddow, like others that like do this and practice this, and I get it. But he could have been this journalist all along, but he chose the grift. So I'm glad he fried Ted Cruz. It is a little bit like watching two people you can't stand fight it out, and you're sort of like, I don't really want to pick a side here, but if I had to, it'd be that. Since I brought up President Obama, one of the things we need to learn from this week, we got to leave Obama alone. And listen, I did not see Amanda Seals' commentary, and this is honestly, it's really not related to her at all, because I saw three other things that actually is what made me have this conversation. Amanda has the right to feel how she feels. I put that in a bit of a separate, somewhat of a separate box, but kind of in the same box, because where I originally wanted to kind of discuss this was based off a piece that I saw in the publication that I write for, and that is The Atlantic. I write for The Atlantic. I got an article out now. If you guys want to check it out, make sure you do. But mine was based off this particular piece that I saw in The Atlantic, which is called "Where's Barack Obama?" And as you see the subhead, that's what we call them in this business. It says, "The audacity of Hope presidency has given way to the fierce lethargy of semi-retirement." And the entire piece is basically about how people are expecting Obama in this moment to do more. And Amanda's commentary that she did was just about what he did when he was in office. I'm not sure what triggered the commentary, but that was more or less her saying like, hey, his legacy for Black people wasn't as great as you think. That's a debate for another day that I'm not going to get into. But what I really will say is that this idea that Obama should come swooping in with a cape and come and save America from itself is ridiculous. Y'all, it's the same for Michelle Obama. Why don't you run, Michelle? Why don't you save us? No. So here's the unfairness of what I think of racism overall. And it's just I'm going to apply it in this manner because it just kind of gets at from a situation standpoint, what we're in right now. One of the biggest unfairnesses about racism is that people of color, Black people in particular, are most impacted by, but then they also are given the responsibility of having to solve the shit that they are under the boot of. That doesn't make any sense. It'll be like somebody punching me in my jaw, and instead of holding the person accountable who punched me in the jaw, I have to fix my jaw myself, and I have to put it all back together, and I'm the one who has to be kind to them even though they punched me in the jaw. It doesn't make any sense. And so we got to let Barack Obama go in a lot of ways, not just in expecting him to be the savior and be the voice of reason. And by the way, he campaigned for Kamala Harris. Are we forgetting this? He did. And when he did, a lot of people didn't like it because they didn't like the fact that, because they felt like he was talking down to Black men in particular, because he met with some Black men as he's trying to get, even though the majority of Black men did vote for Kamala Harris, he felt like that was an area that he needed to address. When Barack Obama came out there and talked to the Black men, it caused a scene in our community, a lot of controversy, where people thought he was talking down to him. And then it became this entire indictment about who he is as a person. That's fine. So I think the Democratic Party needs to let him go. I think the public needs to let him go. Because the point that has been made is that because Obama has been a behind the scenes kingmaker, so to speak, because he's used his influence in terms of determining, who should be in line for certain things in the Democratic Party, that if he's going to do those, and these are all just So the reported things that he's done or reportedly. So because of that, they're like, okay, so if you're going to pull strings behind the scenes, then you need to be more out front and fighting this moment that we are in. Again, we got to let him go. He did his 8 years. Him and Michelle did their time. She has no desire to be in politics. She's not running. Stop asking. Stop writing stories about it. Stop wishing. She's not running ever in life, ever. Okay. And I think the Democratic Party needs to let Obama go because they need to move into what is the moment of now. And by that, I mean this, is that they keep waiting on some duplicate of him. It's not coming. He was a once in a generation leader. It reminds me, if I may use a sports example, of all those years that people spent like, who's going to be the next Michael Jordan? Who's going to be the face of the NBA? We're to some degree in that moment now because LeBron is at that point where like, this could be the last time. This might be the last season. So I get it. But we gotta stop doing that. Like what worked for Michael Jordan and what made him a global superstar doesn't work the same way now. And it's the same thing with Obama. What worked for Obama and why he was able to win as many red states as he did, why he was able to win Florida and Ohio and other states where Democrats are struggling to gain any traction in. It was a different time then. Social media wasn't what it is now. Information, the flow of information, misinformation, disinformation, they were different now. The MAGA movement wasn't the Tea Party, even though the Tea Party basically gave birth to the MAGA movement. This was different times. So they keep expecting some leader to come in. And even to some degree, it's not just the Democratic Party. It is the audience, the populace, the voting populace. Y'all keep expecting another Obama. Another Obama's not coming. Let it go. LIG it. Okay. Let it go. Allow for the fact that we live in a different age now, where the misinformation and disinformation is so strong that if Obama came out today, he would lose. I don't think he would be able to win the election the same way that he did before. He would not be able to. Can you imagine? I mean, it was already bad enough, and Donald Trump started the whole birtherism movement. Imagine how bad the misinformation would be about Barack Obama today. It would be crazy. Leave Obama alone. He's done. His time is done. Stop looking for his clones. Stop looking for somebody who's like him. He ran a once-in-a-lifetime campaign. That shit does not work anymore. Find a new strategy. Find a new person. And more importantly, what I would say to the voters, and I mean this in love. I mean this in complete love. We got to take some responsibility and stop waiting on some magical candidate to make us believe. No, you need to want to change this country. You need to want the country to be better. You need to want the country to live up what it's supposed to be. Stop waiting on somebody to make you feel that way about the country that you live in. I'm saying, it's like we keep waiting on somebody to save us. Ain't no Batman signal going up. We have to save us. And Obama-like figure is not going to save us. So leave Obama alone. It's done. He's done. Enjoy just being vacationing and out here doing stuff, Obama. Just enjoy it. All right. Last thing you need to know. Y'all seen the news? I'm sure you have. Tyler Perry is being sued for hundreds of millions of dollars for sexual assault, sexual harassment by an actor whose name is escaping me right now, and who has text messages that many people have read, that people getting the jokes off, get it, or people are clutching their pearls or imaginary pearls and all that. So thank you. Yes, I appreciate that. It's Derek Dixon. That's the name of the actor. Name escaped me. All right. So Tyler Perry's being sued. I don't care about his sexuality. If he sleeps with men, fine. Sleep with women, sleep with both. I don't care. I literally do not care. And I said the same thing when the Puffy trial got started. Actually, I said it before that when the allegations kept pouring forth. Is Puffy, whatever he do with baby oil and who he do it with, wasn't a problem. I'm not here to judge your kink. I don't judge who Tyler Perry wants to sleep with or who he doesn't. The only thing that matters with Tyler Perry, Puff Dad, Puffy, any of them. The only thing that matters, did they assault somebody? Was he trafficking people? Was he beating on people, threatening people, blowing up people's cars? That's the part that matters. Who they freaked off with and who they didn't, I don't care. We should not care about that. And unfortunately, all the stories and all the titillation is about, oh my God, Tyler Perry is gay, or he, whatever he chooses to be. I don't know that man. I ain't never met that man. I did just recently see him a few weeks ago because I went to BET's 45th anniversary dinner, and he gave a great speech. Closest I've been to Tyler Perry, seeing him on the stage. My table was right by where he was on the stage. That was it. And so don't care about that. You just care, did this man assault somebody or not? That's really it. All the rest of that is just like whatever. And what I would say, once again, and this bears repeating, and I will say this ad nauseum for however many times y'all need to hear it. However you talk about Tyler Perry or Diddy or whatever these types of cases come along, realize there are people in your life that you do not know who have experienced some of this abuse that is being alleged against these people. And so the way that they hear you talk about it and the way they hear you discuss it and what you say about it is leaving an impression on them. And it's the reason why they haven't told you. So be cognizant that while you're having a conversation about a celebrity and all those other things, you're also having a conversation about a serious issue that impacts a lot of people. And if your commentary is irresponsible, the people in your life who have told you about their experiences, about abuse situations they face, physical, sexual, whatever they may be, they're going to look at you differently. And the people who haven't told you about the abuse that they've been silent about are going to stay silent because of how you're talking about some celebrity you don't even know. Riding for a celebrity you've never met, who doesn't know you, who doesn't care about you. So just be cognizant of the conversations that we're having around this issue, which is why I said the only thing that matters in this case, did he sexually harass and assault somebody or not? That's it. Don't care about who he slept with, who he tried to, none of that. His proclivities mean nothing. What matters is assault. That's all that matters. I went over more so than I wanted to, but I want to thank you guys again for joining me on another episode, another week here of Let Me Learn You. Again, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like, do all those things. Tell a friend, continue to support. I appreciate these conversations and the feedback that you guys give me in real time. It's wonderful. And just a small bit of housekeeping. So tomorrow's episode of Politics will be dropping. My guest is Laisha Clarendon, former WNBA player. She played in the league 12 seasons. She's great. She's the WNBA's first non-binary player, first non-binary and trans player to ever play in the league. And she retired last year. And so this is her first season not being in the league. And so we have a very robust and wonderful discussion, nuanced discussion about what this experience has felt like for her as somebody who's non-binary and trans, what this climate feels like for her right now. And of course, the issue about trans women in sports. So that's going to be a great conversation. And drop a little plug for next week's episode of Politics, where I have a sit down with Chris Paul. And certainly I ask him about whether or not he plans to retire, and also about, or when he plans to retire, and also about where he might play next season. So be on the lookout for those. Politics drops every Thursday. It's on iHeart, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. So y'all keep on supporting. I appreciate it so much. And again, I'll see y'all next Wednesday for another episode of Let Me Learn You. So y'all go out there and learn something.